8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is Liam Hendricks, and you're watching Crosstown Crosstalk on the Barroom Network.
Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Every summer in Chicago, the sunshine spotlights the city's spectacular skyline, its luxurious lakeshore, marvelous monuments, and the over 200 neighborhoods in the city. And it also brings to light two of the greatest sports franchises in the world. On the north side, it's the Cubs. On the south side, it's the White Sox. This is Crosstown Crosstalk.
Hello and welcome to another very exciting episode of Crosstown Crosstalk, presented by the Barroom Network. My name is Vinnie Parise, and we are firmly in the middle of the All-Star break. We're at the bad part of the All-Star break, actually, because we're all ready for our teams to come back and start playing the second half of the season. I guess it's less than second half of the season. But, you know, it's the All-Star break without, like, the All-Star game and the Home Run Derby. We're just kind of sitting here waiting. And I believe that yesterday and today are the only 2 days on the calendar year of 2023 that don't have the NBA, NHL, NFL, or MLB. The NHL plays on American Thanksgiving. There's football on American Thanksgiving, the NFL. There's football on Christmas if it lands on a Sunday. There's always NBA on Christmas no matter what. No matter what, there's sports except for yesterday and today. Normally, it's only just yesterday because I do believe that the Thursday of All-Star Week is designated for teams to maybe make up a rainout or two, have a doubleheader, whatever it is. There's none of that this year. There's no baseball today. So it's just about talking about what's gone on in the past, what's going to happen in the future. Upload your questions into the chat if you want to say hello. How's it going to every single one of you listening across all the networks? Of course, YouTube, Spotify, Apple. We are happy to have you wherever you may be listening from. Let's start with the beginning of the week. The beginning of the week started with the Major League Baseball Home Run Derby. The Home Run Derby is always just a super fun event. There are people that are going to debate whether or not the current format of the Home Run Derby is kind of where they want it to be. Of course, there were a lot of people that loved the 10 outs. You know, every ball that's put in play that's not a home run is an out. You get 10. I think guys spent less time in the box, or they certainly took less swings. I don't know if they took less time in the box. There was a lot more pitch taking and, you know, waiting for that right pitch when it was that. Now it's just like, no matter what, I'm swinging at it. And this year it kind of seemed like they didn't wait for the ball to land to throw the next pitch, which I like that way better. I'm all about the extra fast action, man. I'm not sitting there trying to watch freaking somebody who has a shitty pitcher just, you know, be sucking at throwing and the batter just take every other ball. Like, that's not fun to watch to me. I would much rather watch what's going on with them swinging and how it's been over the last couple of years. It makes it a lot more entertaining. Anything with a clock is always 10 times better. So, you know, it was fun. It started off with a couple very fun matchups. Randy Arozarena winning his first round matchup. That was obviously incredible to see him hit as many home runs as he did in that little sequence. But then we got to the round that featured Baltimore Orioles superstar catcher Adley Rutschman going up against Chicago White Sox center fielder Luis Robert Jr. Luis Robert Jr., as we all know, is an absolute menace with his baseball bat. He can hit the ball as far as anybody in the league, as frequently as anybody in the league, and he showed that. Rutschman had like this all-time great home run derby round, and it was like, uh-oh. Luis Robert Jr. has to hit how many home runs to advance? That's going to be tough. He needs to hit 28? That's not really likely. Oh, wait, what? He hit 27 in his normal 3 minutes? And he has a minute of bonus time, and all he has to do is hit one. Wow, that was unbelievable. So Luis Robert Jr., he advances to the second round where he would face Randy Arozarena, who just won the first round the round before. And Luis Robert Jr., he hit 22 home runs in the second round, credit to him, but he was not going to ever touch Randy Arozarena, hitting 35 in the second round. I mean, just an unbelievable performance for him. So Arozarena moves to the final where he faces that wagon ass Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who ends up taking him down for his first career home run derby victory. I believe Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s father, Vladimir Guerrero, also won the home run derby in his career. So just absolutely unreal stuff. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., he's one of the best home run hitters in baseball. Kind of having a slow year this year with the Toronto Blue Jays in terms of his home run hitting production, but he's still an absolutely great player on a great team. The Blue Jays are awesome. They will almost certainly be a playoff team. So congrats to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. It was an excellent home run derby. And in case you missed it, myself and my good pal Joe Mandel, we live streamed the home run derby reactions from the second round on. So we watched Luis Robert Jr. along with the people face Arozarena. We watched the final with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Arozarena, and just some outstanding coverage from us. So make sure you go to Spotify, Apple. You can check it out on YouTube. That was Monday's episode of South Burbs Hitman. It was a very interesting episode because it wasn't our traditional format. It was just very much us reacting to the home run derby and having a little bit of fun with it during what is kind of a holiday week for baseball fans around the world. A reminder before I get into the next segment, talking about the All-Star Game. After this episode of Crosstown Crosstalk, we have something very special premiering here on the Barroom Network. Of course, we're talking about Raging Mouth, the Mike North story. That is a podcast that it's a couple 40-minute episodes. And of course, this is not going to be one of the full episodes here at 3 o'clock. It's going to be a 10-minute preview that takes little clips of each one and kind of puts them into one to kind of get you a little teased up for what is to come with this podcast. And everybody's very much looking forward to, everyone hearing it and what's going on with the podcast. So make sure you stick around with the Barroom Network after this episode of Crosstown Crosstalk is over. That'll be at 3 o'clock. So Skylar says, nice shirt, Vinny, of course, always representing the NIU Huskies. Big year ahead. Hopefully they don't suck again. Leading into the All-Star Game. Luis Robert Jr., he injured himself during the home run derby, which is the most White Sox thing of all time. But I also don't necessarily believe it. I also think it's a possibility that they just didn't want him to play, which kind of makes sense based on his history. If he plays tomorrow in Atlanta, then that will I don't know if it'll prove my theory right, but it will definitely make me question things like, hey, Luis Robert Jr., you probably don't want him getting hurt in the All-Star Game. Maybe he did feel a little bit of discomfort during the home run derby. He's still at 22 home runs after they say he hurt himself. So it's not like it was hindering his ability to hit the home runs, and he looked really good all around. So probably a good thing in the end that he didn't suit up for the All-Star Game. In terms of the actual game, he was introduced as an American League All-Star, as a representative of the Chicago White Sox. And then on the very flip side of things, Chicago Cubs All-Star Justin Steele was the only Cub to appear in the All-Star Game itself, and he had one inning of relief pitching where he had one strikeout, and it was a perfect inning. He did not give up a hit. He did not give up a walk. He went 1, 2, 3. It was magnificent, and a big, big effort for Justin Steele as he helped the National League get to the 9th inning with a lead. Now, how did they get to that lead? Elias Diaz. He hits a home run, a 2-run home run to give the National League a 3-2 lead over the American League. The American League has won every All-Star game since 2012. Think about that for a minute. I don't even think the internet existed last time the National League won the All-Star game. And yesterday, of course, I'm joking. The All-Star game was won, or 2 days ago, it was won by the National League for the first time since 2012. That's obviously incredible. And an old friend of Sox fans and Cub fans, Craig Kimbrell, came in to get the save. And you know what? I'm watching Dirty Craig on the mound, and I'm a little upset because he was so good with the Cubs in 2012, right? So good. His ERA was like 0.6, something ridiculous like that. He was probably the best closer of that season up to that point. And he goes to the White Sox, and Tony La Russa thought it would be a good idea to make him a setup man. This guy who's this all-world closer and probably going to go to the Hall of Fame as one of the greatest closers who ever lived. And Tony was just like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make him a setup man for Liam Hendricks, who Liam Hendricks deserves to be the closer as well, especially in 2021. Really, they could have just rotated them. There's no law that says you can't have 2 closers. It just made no sense to me based on the situation. They could have had Kimbrel close. Based on the situation, they could have had Liam Hendricks close. But Kimber was awful with the White Sox. And that kind of sent his career in a little bit of a spiral. He goes to Los Angeles last year and wasn't very good there either. But then he reunites with the general manager who he won a World Series with the Boston Red Sox, and Dave Dombrowski. And Dave Dombrowski's Philadelphia Phillies pick him up. And what does he do? He gets right back on the mound as a closer, and he becomes an all-star. And he's in line to get the save for the National League. Now, it did have some White Sox hairiness to it when he got 2 outs quickly, and then there were 2 runners on. And with 1 runner on, Julio Rodriguez, the Seattle Mariners' hometown kid, came up to bat. And it kind of felt like a Hollywood scripted thing. Like, hey, can the Seattle Mariner kid in Seattle hit the home run to put the American League on top for the win? And then it was for not. Kimbrel walked him. Then he got 1 more strike or 1 more out, the next batter. So the National League wins the All-Star game for the first time since 2012. Again, congratulations to them. It's funny. Since 1997, the National League has only won the All-Star game in 2010, 11, 12, and 23. So 4 All-Star game victories for the National League since 97. The rest all belong to the American League, other than 2020 when there was no All-Star game due to the COVID-19 pandemic, in addition to 2002 when the All-Star game in Milwaukee ended in a tie. So, some things we'll never forget. Those are some of the big moments in All-Star game history. I thought the game was really good. My critiques of the game, I really don't have many. The American League were missing a bunch of studs, and I'm not claiming that's why they lost because, both teams had loaded lineups. But Aaron Judge and Mike Trout were missing and Luis Robert Jr., probably the 3 best hitters in the American League right now, were missing from the lineup. But, that is, you take those guys out and you still have the goods in the American League. And same thing goes for the National League. So, and you know what? It's not even like the National League had every single person to their disposal either. So, it is what it is. It was a great game. It was competitive till the end. Nothing is worse than like a blowout in these types of situations where one team just takes it to the other and it's not really close. The American League, they got down to their final strike with a chance to walk it off with the hometown kid up to bat. I mean, it was excellent. And that's what you ask for in an all-star game, a good game, compelling game, good storylines. I'm happy to see that the Seattle Mariners got a big dub by hosting this all-star game, and I enjoy that franchise right now. I'm enjoying what they're doing. So credit to them. Hey, Seattle, what a sports town that's becoming, eh? I mean, they're that type of team or that city that like nobody thinks about when it comes to sports. Like they're not Philly, Boston, Chicago, or New York, right? Even they're not even really like LA or Detroit, which are probably like tier 2 sports towns, in my opinion. They're probably, in a lot of people's opinion, like a tier 3, tier 4 sports town. They're growing. Okay. The Seattle Seahawks, they're Super Bowl champions from a couple years ago. They were in another Super Bowl. And now they have the Kraken. Well, the Kraken are going to host the Winter Classic. So they're a city on the rise in terms of sports and just, lifestyle, going to hang out, traveling. Skylar says, I like the idea of the colors of the jerseys being the colors of the hosting team. I do too. And I thought they were cool, but I have one major issue. I wish they wore them during the home run derby like they used to. I miss the All-Star game being every team rocking their jerseys. That to me is what it is like. That's the All-Star game. It's seeing the Cardinals and the Cubs be teammates for a game. It's seeing Yankees and Red Sox teammates for a game. Those jerseys next to each other in the lineups. That's what it's all about for me. But, we're kind of veering in the new direction of having the jerseys be worn during the game. So, excuse me, had to cough there. But yeah, I mean, they still looked cool. And listen, if they did it in Pittsburgh, right, they'd be like black and gold. If they did it in Chicago, they'd be like the baby blue and red. Like all sorts of cool combinations across the country that you could come up with stuff like that. And I like how Seattle embraces like the sea colors, the blues, the teals. So yeah, really, really cool jerseys. I thought the game was awesome. I'm trying to see, there's something going on in terms of the MLB trade deadline. Obviously, I see what this is. Okay. So the Cubs, they're going to host the Yankees and the Tigers in 2024. And I saw something about Anthony Rizzo and Baez returning to the Cubs, and I was like, that can't be right. So I apologize. Of course, this upcoming weekend, baseball is going to resume, and the White Sox, they're in Atlanta. And let me tell you something about Atlanta. The Atlanta Braves are the best team in the National League, and I really don't think it's close. They have the best record by 7 games. And everybody else, they kind of feel like the team's just chasing the Braves. They have the big target on their back. Do the Braves have the best record in baseball? I stand corrected. The Braves have the best record in baseball by 2 games over the Tampa Bay Rays, who started the season, 13-0? So the White Sox, they're playing that team. That's tough because the White Sox are 38-54, and you can only hope that they don't get embarrassed. And the White Sox have lost series this season to the Cardinals, who suck, and to the A's, who suck. But they've beaten teams like the Yankees and the Red Sox, and they held their own against the Toronto Blue Jays. They held their own against the Dodgers, even though they lost the series. I'm not certain. They've played down to their competition so far this year, and they've played up to their competition at times. I worry about this Braves series, though. And you look at the pitching matchups, and you got Dylan Cease going in the first game it's Kopech in the first game against Morton for the Atlanta Braves. And then you go to the second game, and it's Lance Lynn versus Strider, which Strider is freaking awesome. And then you got Dylan Cease versus Allard in the series rubber match. So we'll see what happens there. The White Sox are in bad shape. And the reason I think they're in bad shape, some of the rumors that have been coming out with Lucas Giolito and Lance Lynn and Tim Anderson, these guys are probably going to get traded. It's not what I want to hear, but the White Sox are tearing it down. The rebuild is over. It sucks. They didn't get anything out of it other than like one sick playoff game that they won at home. They won a playoff game in 2020 as well, but it was like in Oakland and no fans were there. It doesn't even really count. In 2021, they won that blackout game. They got the game 4. They got smoked in that game. And then last year they went 500 with Tony La Russa, and they were terrible. And this year they're even worse. So if, they do end up selling, hopefully it's for the better. I'm not sure I trust Rick Hahn, Kenny Williams, really anyone in charge over there, but that's just kind of going to be the way it goes. Today it came out, John Morosi of MLB Network, the Los Angeles Dodgers are heavily interested in Lucas Giolito. Why wouldn't the Los Angeles Dodgers be interested in Lucas Giolito? They have an incredible starting rotation. Their offense is loaded with studs like Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts and Will Smith and all sorts of stars all over the field. Why not go for a Lucas Giolito? If Lucas Giolito is like your 4th best starter or 3rd best starter, you're in good shape, and you're looking up at the Braves, but you get to a playoff series with the Braves. It doesn't matter what the standings were. It matters where your rosters and health are right now. So obviously adding Giolito to that to that Dodgers rotation would be perfect. Now, the Braves are a team that I also think could trade for Lucas Giolito. Obviously, the Dodgers are probably front runners based on Morosi's report, but I do think there are tons of other teams that will look at somebody like Lucas Giolito. Would it shock me if it were the Braves? No. Could I see a team like the Miami Marlins looking at Lucas Giolito, where they are in the standings? Absolutely. The Philadelphia Phillies make a ton of sense for him. What about the Cincinnati Reds? The White Sox and Reds have made trades in the past, and they've been friendly with each other. I don't understand why they wouldn't be in the mix as well. They're 50-41. They have a 1-game lead over the Brew Crew for the National League Central. They're 7-3 in their last 10, and they're coming into the post All-Star break portion of the schedule hoping to recreate some of the magic that they had in the first half. So I wouldn't shock me at all. The Arizona Diamondbacks, I mean, they're a surprise team this year. They're one of the great stories in the league, 52-39, tied with the Dodgers for the league lead in the National League West. The White Sox will be on the phone with the general managers of all these teams in the National League. Could I see it being a team in the American League too? Yeah, I could. If the Texas Rangers called the White Sox, I wouldn't be shocked at all. They've made trades in the past. The White Sox got Lance Lynn from Texas. Why wouldn't they give him back? I don't know if they would get Dane Dunning back in return. That would be nice, but I don't foresee that happening necessarily because Lynn hasn't been all that great this season. But lately, he's been proving that he can eat innings, and a playoff team might want a guy like that as their number 4 or 5, as they head down the stretch here. That's where we're at on the trade rumors with the White Sox. They obviously Nightingale. It was either Nightingale or Heyman. Cease, Andrew Vaughn, Luis Robert Jr., and Eloy Jimenez are the quote-unquote untouchables on the White Sox. I don't believe anybody should be untouchable. Really, nobody in any sport should be untouchable. Wayne Gretzky was traded in his prime. There's no package that shouldn't be able to move anyone. But also, like, I get what he means by that. Like, it would really have to be one of those types of packages to return, a Luis Robert Jr. or a Dylan Cease. Andrew Vaughn being on that list makes no sense to me. Same thing with Eloy. Eloy can hit 1 billion home runs, but he's not really the most healthy person of all time in terms of his, body's natural breakdown. And Andrew Vaughn just hasn't been good enough for me to think that he should be this untouchable player just because he was a 3rd overall pick 4 years ago. So that's where we're at on the White Sox at this point in time as they head into this series with the Atlanta Braves. And if you want more White Sox updates and more White Sox conversation, you tune into South Burbs Hitman every Monday night. That's something you need to be doing. A reminder that not long after this show is over, Raging Mouth, the Mike North story, a 10-minute preview of the program, of the podcast, will be coming here on the Barroom Network. So everybody should be looking forward to that. This weekend's a big weekend in Wrigleyville. The Boston Red Sox are making a trip over to Wrigley Field where they haven't really played all that much in their existence. Obviously, interleague play only really started in the late 90s, and then you would have to play them once here or once there, once every 3 years or so. And so the Red Sox have really only played at Wrigley Field in their history 5 or 6 times ever in 100 and something years of both teams' existence. Well, this year with the new schedule and how everybody's playing everybody now, the Red Sox are coming to Chicago where they will play the Cubs at Wrigley Field. That should be a really, really fun series. They're the 2 oldest ballparks in the league. They're 2 of the oldest teams in the whole league, and there's a lot of history there. Whenever the Red Sox come to town to play the White Sox, I think that is also a big deal. But when they're here to play the Cubs, because of how rare it's been in history, I think that's a significant series, and fans of both teams are going to be looking forward to that one. Next year, the Cubs go to Fenway Park, which also should be really fun. But yeah, when the Cubs host the Red Sox, I think that's always a special moment in time. When you look at the pitching matchups, I'll grab them up here for you. Pitching matchups for the Cubs and the Red Sox. Bello is going to face Hendricks tomorrow night, excuse me. So that's obviously a really good matchup. 2 guys, both with 3.04 ERAs. Bello's pitched a little more this year because Hendricks came back a little bit into the season. And then you got on Saturday, it will be Marcus Stroman and his 9-6 record with a 2.96 ERA going against Paxton, who's 5-1 with a 2.73 ERA. Just another unreal matchup between these 2 teams. And then on Sunday, you'll have Crawford versus Justin Steele. So Justin Steele's 9-2 with a 2.56 ERA. That's probably the first matchup that totally skews in one way. The other 2 are pretty even. This one skews heavily in the Cubs' favor. Crawford, good pitcher, 4.11 ERA, 3-4 record though. The Red Sox are looking to stay in it, and the Cubs are too. But the Red Sox, they play in a very tough division, so that obviously hurts them in a lot of ways. But they're 48-43. They're the best last place team in baseball, and it's not close because they'd be in first place in most divisions. But yeah, when the first pitch is thrown in that series, I hope everybody enjoys it because it's going to be some good stuff. Last couple things I wanted to run down before we end the program today and get you guys set for Raging Mouth, the Mike North story. Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani is about to go through one of the most polarizing stretches of his entire life. He might be traded. But lots of players are going to be traded, right? It's the MLB trade deadline. Shohei Ohtani's different. Shohei Ohtani's the greatest player who ever lived. He is a top 3 pitcher in the world. He is a top 3 hitter in the world. Nobody else has ever been top 100 at both at the same time, ever. Ever. Babe Ruth only pitched and hit 2 years in his career. Everyone calls Ohtani Japanese Babe Ruth. Hogwash. Get that out of my face. Babe Ruth stinks compared to Shohei Ohtani. Okay? When the Yankees got Babe Ruth, they realized he wasn't worth it as a pitcher for them. They stuck him in right field, and the rest, as they say, is history. When he was with the Red Sox, he primarily only pitched. He didn't, he wasn't like this he was a great hitter, but he didn't put up the numbers that he was putting up with the Yankees. He did not do both at the same time like Ohtani is. Ohtani will probably end up leading the American League in home runs, and as long as his blister on this finger is cleared up by the time he gets back to action this week, I firmly believe he is the MVP of the league. And of course, there's nothing else to say other than the fact that he's just so great that him being traded is going to be a monumental moment in the history of sports. And I'm looking now, Ohtani's scheduled to start against France for the Astros on Friday, tomorrow. So while you're watching Red Sox Cubs, it's also Ohtani Day, 8:38 local time start Central for those watching from the Chicagoland area. Looks like Ohtani is going to get right back on the mound after he didn't pitch in the All-Star game because of a little blister that he had on his hand, but clearly it's all good. He's got a 3.32 ERA. He's 7-4. He'll be a Cy Young candidate, but he'll also be in the MVP conversation because he leads the American League in home runs, and he's also going to probably post 200-plus strikeouts. It's just unbelievable what he's doing. The fact that he might change teams over the next 3 weeks it's monumentally huge. Every team in the league should be trying to get him, no matter where they are in the standings, because he'll sell tickets. He'll see what you're all about and maybe consider signing there. Like, there's all sorts of reasons to consider Shohei Ohtani right now. The teams I'm looking at that'll be the most aggressive after him, I think the Seattle Mariners will take a push. The Los Angeles Dodgers will certainly be in the mix. I hope the Atlanta Braves are in the mix. Adding a premier bat and a high-end starter for the Braves would just be magnificent right now with their 60-win season that they're currently at. It's going to be interesting to watch what happens with Ohtani. If he stays with the Angels, is he going to leave in free agency? Is he going to stick it out with the Angels long-term? The reason this is even a conversation, just a couple shows ago, the Angels were like in the good graces of everybody, but they've lost 5 in a row going into the All-Star break. They're 1-9 in their last 10, and now 45-46 on the season, 4th place in the American League West, 7 games behind the Texas Rangers for first place. You go over to the wild card, excuse me, they're 5 games out of the wild card. So, like, unless they really come out of the All-Star break on fire, they're going to probably really take some calls on Shohei Ohtani. Oh, by the way, Mike Trout, he's injured. He's going to be out for a little bit. So it's not like he's going to be there to help them win enough games to get back into this thing. It's going to be interesting to watch. I hope whatever happens leads to Shohei Ohtani's rise on the national stage. People need to be watching Shohei Ohtani. It's a must. You need to get out there and watch Shohei Ohtani. And then, wrapping up the show with the rest of the division races across Major League Baseball right now, you got the Tampa Bay Rays leading the AL East by 2 games. The Baltimore Orioles are in second. They will certainly make a push for it this season. They're right there amongst the top teams in the American League. It wouldn't shock me if the Blue Jays, Yankees, and Red Sox all find a way, at least 2 of them find a way to make the playoffs. There's wild cards. That division's loaded. Like I said, the Boston Red Sox, who are in last of that division, they could be in second after one good week. And even with their record right now, they'd be leading the Central. And they'd only be a couple games out of the West lead. So we will see what happens with that great division. The American League Central stinks. It's the worst division in baseball. It might be the worst division in baseball history. The Cleveland Guardians currently lead it with a record of 45-45. Kind of makes you miss last year's White Sox team just a little bit, doesn't it? We thought it was so bad in the moment, right? Wrong. Sometimes the average is okay. Excuse me. And as far as the West, the Texas Rangers, we touched on that. They have a 2-game lead over the Houston Astros. The Seattle Mariners are 6 games behind, and then you got those Angels. The Oakland A's are the only team like dead. Oh no, the Kansas City Royals are as well in the Central. Those 2 teams are both dead in the American League. Everybody else still has like a miniature chance to find a way into the playoffs, but for the most part, it's those division-leading teams plus the West team, the Astros, and then the teams in the East that, will make some noise once we really start getting close to the playoffs. As far as the National League, of course, we mentioned the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves have the best record in baseball, 60-29. They have an 8.5-game lead over the Miami Marlins, who have the second best record in baseball. They have the largest lead of any team in the National League, and the team they're leading has the second best record in the league. That's absolutely unbelievable. Credit to the Braves. They've been amazing. Philly has a chance too. They're 48-41 in terms of wild card, not the division. And then you move over to the Central. We touched on the Central a little bit. The Cincinnati Reds, they lead it 1 game over the Milwaukee Brewers. Cubs are in third, 7 games behind. But the Cubs probably looking more at a wild card spot at this point, or if the Reds really fall off, I guess that would open doors for the Cubs. And we've seen the Cubs get hot and we've seen them get cold. They're 5-5 in their last 10 going into the All-Star break, but we've seen them win 7 in a row. We've also seen them lose 6-7 in a row. So, and then the Pittsburgh Pirates have completely fallen out of it after leading the division to start June. So, and then you got the St. Louis Cardinals, who are going to be sellers for sure because they're right there with the Sox and maybe the Mets as the most disappointing team in all baseball. I didn't even touch on the Mets when talking about the East because that's how irrelevant they are right now. They're 18.5 games out of first place. So no AL East title for you, New York Mets. No NL Central title for you, Pittsburgh Pirates. You go over to the AL or the NL West, that's a very good division. Only the Colorado Rockies don't have a chance. The San Diego Padres, who were in the National League Championship Series last year, they're in 4th place, 8.5 games behind first. And then the San Francisco Giants are 2.5 games behind the Dodgers and Diamondbacks, who are tied for the top spot in the division. So that will be a very compelling division race to end the season as well. And I'm very much looking forward to it. Love the NL West. You guys might, if you guys have been watching this show since the beginning, when Joey Parise was my co-host, we had an NL West segment every show. No matter what, we talked about the Dodgers, Giants, Padres, Diamondbacks, and Rockies because it was just a fun division to cover. And, West Coast baseball is very, very fun. So I hope everybody's enjoying the division races. I hope you enjoyed the All-Star game, home run derby, watching all your favorite players come together on the world's biggest stage for the All-Star game, the Midsummer Classic in Seattle. It was a lot of fun. White Sox fans, you got the Braves this weekend. Cubs fans, you got the Red Sox this weekend. Should be a lot of fun. If you're a fan of a non-Chicago team, you're going to have a good weekend too because you're playing someone and it's going to be fun to watch, no doubt. Make sure at 3 o'clock in just under a half hour, you tune in to Raging Mouth, the Mike North story presented by Raw Jewelers. That is something that everybody needs to tune into. There's going to be some great stories, some great insight to things that are going on with Mike North and his life and some of the stories that he'll tell. I was listening to one of the clips that he put on a couple weeks ago when they first announced the show, and he was talking about a baseball player that he met and he went and threw with him under a bridge or something along those lines. You're going to have to tune into the show to hear some of these stories. All the stories are great. So it's been a great time, seeing them put this thing together and it be built from scratch. So the Mike North story, Raging Mouth, make sure you tune in 3 o'clock, a little 10-minute preview to get you set for all the episodes that are coming later down the line. I will be back on the South Burbs Hitman next week, along with Bar Down Talking Hockey next week, and then Crosstown Crosstalk next Thursday. Make sure you tune into all the shows here at the Barroom Network, not just mine, starting at 3 o'clock with Raging Mouth, the Mike North story presented by Raw Jewelers. As always, thank you for listening.
Another happy landing.